Alright, how's it going? So Alexander Usyk defended his undisputed championship at heavyweight by absolutely annihilating Daniel Dubois. That's the right word, annihilating. He annihilated him, he destroyed him. It wasn't even competitive, which was a surprise to me actually. I thought that Dubois would come in. He seemed very, very confident. He was coming in on the back of 3 impressive performances where he showed a lot of heart, a lot of grit. Last time out, he demolished AJ. He annihilated AJ, right? Anthony Joshua. But Usyk, he flipped the script on him and just absolutely destroyed him. So I didn't expect that. I thought that Dubois would start fast and be able to impose himself on Usyk for a couple of rounds. I thought Usyk will soak up pressure, move around, and then start to come on as the fight wore on. But Usyk, it goes back to how good he is and how smart he is. He knew that Dubois would come at him from round 1. And so his game plan was to shut that down straight away. From round 1, he started landing. He was landing a very good jab in round 1. Not a Devin Haney jab, not a pillow jab. I'm talking about a real solid jab. He was landing on Dubois, rocking Dubois with a jab in round 1. That really set the tone. And it reminds me of that saying, from Mike Tyson. Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Another way to say that is that a contender can train for 12 weeks and be extremely confident and have some good wins, but then they step in the ring and they realize that this is a different level. I'm fighting the champion here. And that was Dubois. He looked stunned in round 1. He looked lost. He came in with supreme confidence, talking about how he's going to get rid of Usyk, make him feel old and all of this. Very, very confident was Dubois coming into the fight. And all that was just taken away by Usyk in round 1. Just, an incredible display from Usyk. He looked as good as he's ever been. No signs of aging, skills, speed, intelligence. Just a truly incredible performance. And as I said pre-fight, this guy can be compared with any all-time great. He's up there. He's up there amongst the all-time greats. And definitely of this era, he's the best. There is no one even close to him. I said this pre-fight too, before this fight. There's nobody close to Usyk. The guys he beat to become cruiserweight, undisputed. Okay, not the best, but Breedis is a great fighter. Gassiev is a very solid fighter. Michael Hunter, a couple other good names at cruiserweight. Then to become undisputed at heavyweight, beating Dubois twice, Fury twice, AJ twice. Just the resume, the names and the impressive performances, outdo anything that anybody else has done. Terence Crawford doesn't even come close. I bring up his name because there's a lot of people that say that Crawford is the best pound for pound fighter in the world. And to me, it's laughable. I think a lot of people like Crawford and want to put him pound for pound, and I think it's something to do with also, American bias, that sort of thing. You know, they want Crawford as pound for pound the best. You know, a lot of people do for their own reasons, but it's not even a comparison. You know, when you think about the guys that Crawford beat to become undisputed at 140, you know, they were average. They were very average fighters at 140 when he was there. At 147, you know, he beat an absolutely washed Cal Brook, absolutely washed Errol Spence that got thrown out of his car, you know, and smashed his head on the ground. Brain damaged Errol Spence, and people put that down as this great win. You know, it's a win over a name, but Spence wasn't even, he wasn't a shadow of himself after the car crash and after the, you know, several instances of getting drunk, you know, not living that clean life. Yeah, Crawford, not saying he's not a good fighter. Crawford is a good fighter, a very good fighter, but the names he's beat aren't even comparable to Usyk, and especially the time he fought them. You know, like Cal Brook would have been a very good name on his record if Cal Brook was in his prime or close to his prime, and same with Errol Spence. Those would be very good names on his resume. But when you look at the context of it, both guys were way past their prime. Errol Spence wasn't way past his prime, but the point is, after the car crash, you know, I mean, his teeth were knocked out in that crash. His brain was rattled. He spent months in a recovery. That's not the same guy that won the welterweight title against Cal Brook. You know, Terence Crawford's resume is very thin, and it's even thinner when you look at who he fought in their prime, because it's basically no one. Whereas Usyk, you know, he's going in there with guys like Fury and AJ and Dubois, who outweigh him by 30 pounds. Much bigger men. You know, Dubois in his prime, and he absolutely destroys Dubois. You know, that's pound for pound. Crawford isn't even close. It's not a debate, right? So, yeah, anyway, Alexander Usyk destroys Dubois. Let me know what you think.